right, let's get back to the written questions. This one is from John. Who is, okay, another similar question. Who is a distractor and who is calling attention back to the meditation? The experience seems as though I have two personalities. This makes me think that the journey back to the one mind starts within. I know this seems obvious. The distractor is the ego. I don't know why it feels confusing or challenging, but it does. The ego shenanigans, no doubt.
Those ego shenanigans, they never stop, do they? They do actually at a certain point. That's the good news. So, my journey back to the one mind, that's an interesting statement. The journey from a separate mind, a personal mind, back to the one mind is not actually a far distance to travel. We might say no farther than a ray of light has to travel to be connected to the sun. So it's not actually that you're journeying to the one mind. It's not that you are separate from the one mind and attempting to get back there through spiritual practices like meditation. It's that you are the one mind in a state of dreamful ignorance of itself. You are the one universal self because that's all that exists, common sense. But you have taken upon yourself a kind of dream character and forgotten who you are. So this is why the sages will say things like, go back to the earliest part of yourself you can find or identify with. And Ramana Maharshi would say it's the I feeling, not the thought I, because the thought I is ego, but the actual feeling of I. What does it feel like to exist, to know that you're the subject? You know, it's connecting to your own subjectivity that gives you the understanding, oh, there's just one mind and I am that. So there's no journey and there's no destination. I've never been separate, just like I don't have to journey back to my body in my bed from the dream world. Can you imagine what a headache that would be? Each night you're dreaming of like running from a dragon or something through a fairy tale fantasy world. And then you're like, where's my body? And you see this ethereal image way up in the heavens. Oh, I got to sprout wings and fly back into my body. And you're trying to, through self-effort, get yourself out of the dream and back to the body. What a far distance it is. You don't have to do that, do you? There's just awakening. And instantly, upon awakening, you're in the waking state. No distance, right? Distanceless. The journey is through my own ignorance of who I am. So who's the distractor? Ego mind, or we could say forgetfulness, dreamfulness, sleepfulness, whatever word works for you. I'm in a state of ignorance of my nature, and that ignorance is distracting. It's creating thoughts of, I'd rather be doing this or that, or is my meditation working? Did I connect to the I am? Chatter, 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 chatter. Thoughts, 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 thoughts. Nothing to blame the mind for. That's all it can do. It can either think or be silent. So it can't be blamed for thinking, but its thinking reflects my belief in who I am. So who calls attention back to meditation? The waking state self, who is becoming lucid in the dream. If you've had a lucid dream, or especially if you've practiced lucid dreaming before, you have all kinds of really amazing experiences that give you a huge leg up on the enlightenment path, because you may find yourself, like this would happen to me years ago, over 10 years ago, when I practiced this religiously every day. I would find myself partially lucid in a dream almost all the time, and I would have to try to get myself fully lucid. So for example, I might know that I'm dreaming, so I might have a little bit of lucidity of, oh, I'm in a dream, and there's kind of this feeling of a rush that comes over you, of excitement, of I did it, I became lucid. But then that's all that I would get. and I would actually keep acting out the dream character. I would still be afraid of whatever was going on, or I'd still be enthralled in whatever was going on. So I wasn't really lucid yet. I was kind of lucid, but not enough to disengage with the forms of the dream. Because other times when I would become completely lucid or attain full lucidity, there's absolutely zero interest in the dream. And the interest becomes, what can I create? And you go off creating universes and worlds and superpowers and all kinds of fun stuff. So you can be in a state of slight lucidity, right? And that's true for this dream as well. The dream of physical form, it's also just a dream. And you're also just identified with the dream character. But why are you meditating? Because at least part of you is becoming lucid. And so, you know, your dream character at night, when you're trying to become lucid, you may say, okay, how do I become lucid in this dream? I'm going to sit down and meditate on my waking state. And so the dream character sits down on a dream cushion and you're like, all right, I'm going to become lucid. Here we go. And you already see the humor, right? And the paradox that it's like, wait, if you want to become lucid, just do it now. You don't need to meditate. Just realize you're awake. And that's how you become lucid. But instead, the dream character, still in a large degree of dream and sleep, says, well, I can get myself to lucidity if I meditate long enough, if I do X, Y, Z spiritual practice. So this is why spiritual practices are very good. They are needed as concessions to one who is still under the dream hypnosis, right, of Maya. One who's really, really convinced they're dreaming, we may say, okay, fine, go sit down on the dream meditation cushion and try to meditate on the waking state, and this will be helpful. But it's like, but you could just realize it now. That was like Ramana Maharshi's constant, delightful frustration with people, was that they're like, how many japa mantras do I have to repeat? How long do I have to practice japa before I realize the self? How long do I have to ask who am I before I realize the self? You can't realize the self. You can only be the self. You can only know you're the self right now. Realization as a future experience is not real because it's already true. So don't even think, when will I realize it? You're just putting it off. Just realize it's true right now. It'll never be more true. So I just accept it. I am the self. The mind's like, what do you mean you're the self? Well, I don't see oneness. Don't care. Doesn't matter. Don't care what the mind says. It's true in reality. And if there's one thing we know, the mind definitely ain't in reality. It's in a dream world. It's in a bunch of projections, and it only sees its projections. So the dream character can just say, I'm awake right now. I am the waking self. That's the only reason I'm dreaming. If I'm dreaming something, it must be coming from a source, a higher mind that's creating the dream. So I am that. I'm in a dream. So I'll use mantras to affirm what I know is true, not to convince myself. I don't need to be convinced. It's already true. I just need to know it's true and affirm that it's true. And then the mind will begin to bow to the truth. When you try to argue with the mind about whether it's true, you're just juicing up the mind. So instead, I just say, wow, my mind's really convinced I'm in a dream. Don't care. I am awake and aware in reality itself. I am free right now in heavenly reality. And you just keep affirming that. Doesn't matter what dream appearance happens. I'm awake and aware in reality itself. And as I continue to place my attention on my waking state, this brings about a conclusion of the dream, doesn't it? Because your mind needs to energize whatever you're aware of. So if you no longer put energy to the dream and you put all your energy towards the waking state, then that's the state that will energize into manifestation. You will wake up to your true nature. And so this is why Ramana Maharshi and Nisargadatta famously said, the best practice and the only practice you really need is to be aware of the sense of I, the shining I am in yourself at all times. Nisargadatta said, hold on to the feeling of I like a suffocating man holds on to oxygen. That was a really powerful pointer for me when I first heard that. Hold on to the sense of I like a suffocating man holds on to oxygen. Can you put yourself in the position in your imagination of what it feels like to suffocate? We've all suffocated to some degree, right? Whether you're swimming in a pool or the ocean and trying to come up from the bottom to get that breath, you're running out of oxygen. There's this desperation, right, to get oxygen. You couldn't imagine thinking about something else in that moment, right? When you're at the threshold of carbon overload and you got to breathe in, go think about something else. Good luck. Go think about the Netflix show you watched last night. Go think about your romantic attachments. No shot, right? Because all that has room in the mind is the one all-consuming desire for oxygen. Can you translate that same desperation to myself? I have to know who I am like I need to breathe. If I don't know who I am, I will not even take a breath until I find out. This is what a disciple said to Krishna. He who wants to realize the self worse than their next breath realizes the self. And the story, I think, is that one of the disciples hears this pointer and plunges themselves into the ocean. And they wait for like 2 or 3 minutes. And then this guy bursts out of the water. He stayed underwater as long as he possibly could. And he faced that feeling of I'm going to die without oxygen and realized this is how bad I need to know myself. Realized the self and came up to the water just at the last second before he died. I love those extreme analogies or stories because it's just painting this picture for us that until you want it more than you want everything else, there's distractions in the way, right? As long as you want to interact with the dream in some way, you don't want to wake up bad enough, right? You only achieve the waking state when you have no interest in the dream state and you turn your full attention to the waking state. And then awakening happens immediately.